Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's Behavior here for another episode of Just My Opinion. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. And with this episode right here, we are talking Lovecraft Country Season 1, Episode 4, titled A History of Violence. So if this is your first time finding me and you're feeling this show, I do weekly recaps of the show, going up, down, left, right, in and out, spoiling this episode. So if you haven't seen Episode 4 yet, I strongly suggest you turn this video off now, press pause, click the watch later button, go watch the episode, come back, and then you can tune in for all of this spoilery goodness. So you have been warned. So please subscribe to the channel. Also, give me that thumbs up if you like the video, because it does help me out a lot, and feel free to spoil in the comments as well. So the storyline for this one is, after Christina mysteriously shows up at her doorstep, Letty confronts Atticus about his plan to return to Florida. Later, in search of missing pages to a crucial text, Letty, Tick, and Montrose head to Boston, with Hippolyta and Diana along for the ride. Back in Chicago, a handsome stranger nurses Ruby's disappointment over a squandered job opportunity. And I'll just go ahead and say, guys, this is another great episode, another fantastic episode. I loved it. I actually like this episode, A History of Violence, number 4, better than episode 2 and 3. If you didn't go see my recap of 3, go check it out. It's on the channel. Number 2 was a little bit weird for me, but this is competing with number 1. And just what's great about the show, besides it being an all-black cast centered around, black people. I mean, this whole cast is just showing so much strength, so much courage, and just how they're just not afraid to dive in head first with a helmet, but head first. And, I can just get all behind that. With it being, serialized and also episodic at the same time, each episode is like a different genre in and of itself, as we all know. The first one for me was like a suspense thriller, edge of your seat, dealing with these blatant racist white supremacists, Jim Crow laws, Green Book, things like, sundown towns. And then number 2, more science fiction, dealing with magic and wizards and sorcery. Bit weird for me. Number 3 was like a horror story, and I'm not a horror guy, but I really did love that episode, especially with the performance of Miss Journey Smollett. I can never pronounce her name the right way. Letty. I mean, she did a great job. And like I said, I'm not even a horror guy. And this episode right here is more of like an action adventure type vibe, kind of gives me those Indiana Jones vibes, and also the Goonies. I don't know if y'all remember that film. It's a classic film, came out in 1995. One of my favorite films of all time. So if you haven't seen that, please, go check it out. But if you've seen the Goonies, hey, you guys, you know what I'm talking about. But just a few things in this episode. Please make sure, my recap, that you stay to the end, because I do have a few questions, as I did the last one. Now, I'll just go ahead and say that, guys, sometimes when I ask these questions, it's not for my knowledge. It's also for the viewers that may be, in the comment section. Now, going ahead and getting into spoilers. One of the main things I talked about last week was, I was like, okay, is Letty really a virgin? Because, she was really they had the sex scene on the sink. It was very nice and passionate and all that good stuff. But Letty was emotional afterwards. During the diner scene later on in the episode, she told Tick that was her first time, that she just really wanted to feel something, especially with everything they've been going through, etc. However, at the house party, the housewarming party, the other gentleman was just saying, it's like, hey, me and Letty used to tussle back in high school. So I posed the question, like, who's telling the truth? And I got a lot of great comments from especially from the women. So thank you very much. I do appreciate that. And the guy that was supposedly lying, I mean, his character's name is Tree. I don't like him. I just don't. It's just something about him I don't like. Maybe it's because, he's telling on himself and just, I don't know. But it's just, he's possibly one of the only characters that I don't like. Now, jumping forward in this episode, when they was at the museum, or on their way to the museum, on the way to Boston, when I got to the museum, he had Tree had a confrontation with Tick, just saying, hey man, are you the one that told Letty what I said? You can have her, bro. You don't got to go around stabbing me in my back. And, and like the scene prior to that is when he tried to make the lame ass joke to Letty, talking about like, hey, they called me Tree because, 2 and 3 legs, and it was stupid. And Letty was just saying like, oh, because we tussled in high school. So the reason why I posed that question, I believe I was wrong. I think I'm going to stand corrected, is because when I watched episode 1 through 5, I remembered that, but I guess just not all the details. And so when Letty said that, I should not know why you're called Tree because, we toasted in high school, I was thinking that was, I remembered it at the time as her just revealing that, we messed around in high school. But I think that now she was being sarcastic. She was being facetious because, at the bar, Letty told Tick like, hey, I'm a virgin. That was my first time. And sometime off scene, he was like, oh, really? Because Tree over here told me that y'all used to tussle in high school. So she probably like, oh, and handled it well and kind of just, smashed a pie in his face right there when, he trying to brag and boast and things of that nature. So unless I'm still interpreting it the wrong way, it appears that I was wrong and that he was lying, or maybe I'm still not piecing everything together or whatever. But I will still correct it and be like, first time I saw that, I thought that she was lying, but I watched the episode again, and thank you for the comments, guys. But jumping back to the very beginning of the episode, it's opening up with Montrose, and he's stressing out, he's drinking, he's panicking, listening to recordings of the Red Army and the Soviet Union and all that. And later on, he's comparing himself to the Reds, and we see that he's dreaming, daydreaming, and just awake in and out. But he's reading the book of names and deciphering all of that, which comes up later on in the episode when they're trying to get through the vault, and find out the secret code and all that good stuff. And I also like how everything from the last episode with powers is still transitioning over to this episode as well, just with the wizardry and sorcery and spells of that nature, because Christina shows up to the house, the Warthorpe house that Hiram Epstein was doing his scientific experiments, being an evil racist white supremacist, and she can't get into the door. She wants to get in there and get the orrery or whatever that was in that closet that Hippolyta found, that she's trying to, she was like, she's on the phone with her dad, just like, hey, I got this mechanical solar system, and what solar system can have 2 suns, and I haven't figured it out, and all of that. And so we also, Letty's talking to Christina, back at the porch. I like how Christina can't get in there. A lot of you was commenting because I said I didn't know what to call the lady that sacrificed the goat at episode 3, and you all were saying that she's a priestess. Great, I do agree with that. And we see that the spell is like the X's, is the X, the blood of the goat is still an X on the doorpost, and Christina can't get in. And they have a little one-on-one right there, just talking about, hey, don't let the men think that that it's all about them, et cetera, et cetera. And when I saw that scene, I kind of thought about the feminist movement of how, right now in 1955, Chicago, everyone for the most part seems like they're a tight knit, like, black man, black woman between, Tick and Letty or whatever. And I kind of just like, what are you doing trying to, draw a division in between these two right here, kind of like, they did in real life. And, I could be over analyzing that there, but that's just kind of something that I thought about. And I mean, that's expected coming from Christina. She's not a good guy. She's evil. But going back to Hippolyta, I like how, she's really just trying to figure this out. She's really grieving and knows that there are some questions that needs to be answered as far as her husband, George, is concerned, and her late husband, George. And we actually see that later on in the episode when she's riding in the car with Dee, and Dee has the atlas that she found in the glove box. And she's like, hey, what's going on? What's wrong? And she's like, we're going to find answers. And, rightfully so. I don't blame her. I mean, I can't expect her to accept, this answer that Montrose gave her, that just the sheriff shot her, when deep down, she knows that, there's something else going on, some more sinister things at play. But just like in the last episode with Letty giving a great performance, doing that exorcism scene, she's still great in this episode too. I love her character. She's very, very pretty, very, very, very beautiful woman. But just the way how frustrated she was when she was approaching Tick in the library or whatever, like, oh, you're not gonna tell me that, this what she call her, a white sorceress bitch, bought my house. And he's just like, hey, I didn't want to get you involved. And, of course they really do care for each other. And, I want them to, be together and live happily ever after, or organically, but I just like this power couple right there. But, they're just revealing things to each other. And he's just like, Tick's just like, hey, this is what it is. There's two deciphered pages still out there. Titus had one, Hiram Epstein, we got to find them basically, and Letty trying to be down, and, he's just like, no, back off. I don't want you involved. And, and I understand both sides of it, especially with her dying, and during episodes too. I mean, she's really committed. And this episode is just like really funny too. I found myself chuckling a number of times while they were at the library. Just, sometimes I don't really prefer for jokes, but just funny moments that happen organically. They're in the library. You're supposed to be quiet, and the little boy's trying to read, and he just like, shh, and picking up his book and throwing it down, and just like, oh, scoffing and, walking off. I was laughing, but I was also, that was a funny moment. But I was just also laughing in the next scene where, we have Tick, Montrose, and Letty, and they're just trying to really determine the next steps and go on this adventure. And, of course, Montrose did just want them to go. And he's like, y'all, what they say, something like, you're stupid and foolish and y'all really go together. That doesn't, those two things really do go together. And I don't know, it's just funny the way all three of them talk together. I mean, all three of these actors are just showing so much emotion, and passion in their performance. Tick is just like, I told you this is a waste of time. And, Letty is getting on to Montrose just like, hey, why are you letting this dude, chase his tail when you have all the answers, And I really hope that Montrose, really comes through to save the day and somehow, because I'm really on the fence with this character, because throughout this episode, throughout the series, there's just so many times where he's just showing sprinkles of, how courageous he is, but there's also sprinkles of cowardice. It's just kind of really back and forth, like jumping towards the end of the episode where, that father-son moment that he was having, father-son moment, because at this point I think George is Tick's father, just like, I really am proud of you, son. You really was courageous out there, and and took charge, and you ended up being a good man in spite of me, but at the bar, he seeming really timid and frail. It's like, oh God, I don't want to go, while Tick is just so strong and bold. And I'm like, man, let's charge this thing head on, man. The more of us, the better. You know what I'm saying? Our chances. And he's like reluctant to go, trying to be the father. So it's just back and forth. So I just kind of say that to say, like, also, I don't know if you guys watched the Watchmen series that was on HBO as well. I was really, really not feeling Yahya Abdul-Mateen III's or the second, character at first. I just thought he was a super weak Ben male, but later on in that series, he ended up being so-and-so. I don't want to spoil it if you haven't seen it. And that's just kind of like my emotions right now as I'm watching Montrose or whatever. But, it's interesting. They decide to go to the museum. And I look, I've seen this episode more than once, and I still can't piece this together. Maybe y'all can help me out in the comments. But it may be a plot hole. I know we're dealing with magic and things like that. But, we'll get there. Hold on. That's why you got to keep watching. But they're packing up the car, and they're trying to go to Boston or whatever. And somebody told me I need to stop saying that's or whatever so much. But, I just kind of like the silly banter between Tick and Letty. There's just so much tension, friendly tension, sexual tension, love tension in between them, as they're fighting over the suitcase, and he lets it go. She's like, she falls back, and she's like, it's like, you told me to let it go. I for one, listen or whatever, what I'm told. And again, with these three characters, Montrose, Letty, and Tick, they're just arguing back and forth. Like, why did you invite them? And I don't know. I just like silly banter between characters. And it just really seems genuine. And this is when Tree pops up as well. When he popped up, Tick popped up. Hey man, what the hell are you doing? I just don't like him. But of course, I think he came because Hippolyta did invite him. So they're going to Boston, right? And it's a 15-hour trip. They get in there. I find it very interesting that the tour guide was giving the tour to the people, and she was like, yes, this is so-and-so, Titus Braithwaite, who came over in the 1810s, and because, he was so nice to the uncivilized people, they gave him these artifacts. No, he was an evil, racist, white supremacist, probably came over there, raping, torturing, and murdering everybody and stole their stuff, but of course, they are telling the story their way. It's just like, I was just like, wow, y'all are really going to lie and say that, he came over and because he was so nice that thank you for teaching us uncivilized beasts how to be more, civilized or whatever, so that really stood out to me. Another just scene that I was laughing too, when they get there, Hippolyta and Dean go off to the Star museum part, and we'll talk about that in a second. And Tree dumbass coming up like, hey, they got dinosaurs. Like, the look on Letty and Tick's face was just priceless to me. I was laughing my butt off, just like, bro, we on a completely different level, a completely different mission. You talking about dinosaurs? He said, well, so what? And like, we can't see it in the next 3 hours. I'm just like, man, get out of here. And that's where him and Tick have the confrontation that I was talking about, earlier or whatever. And, we see the security guard that Montrose knows. And it's quite interesting because Tick, Atticus, is like, how do you know the security guard? And then we got Tree throwing shade, talking about, I just kind of find it interesting that, I think you tried to get back at me because I sent you down to that bar when Sammy was down there with the other man. And it's also interesting that your father, Montrose, and Sammy have been kind of close, since you've been gone or whatever. So that's kind of like foreshadowing something right there. That may come up in future episodes, but they go on and they find the vault. It's that big statue in the middle of the room, and then they go back, and this is where like the adventure really just starts kicking in. And I'm laughing during this episode more and more. He's like, hey, y'all, turn off your flashlights. And they're like, what? Turn them off. I chuckled a few times. Like, I actually had to take it back because it was just funny to me or whatever. It may not be funny to you, but it was funny to me. And then, I was really starting to get at the edge of my seat right here. Like Tick said, this is that journey to the center of the earth type stuff, and he's going down, just charging down head first or whatever. And I like that they're sharing the role of leader between Tick and Letty. Or he's like, hey, I need the map. She goes over there and breaks the glass and just jumps down there. And it's really entertaining to me. But this is something that doesn't make sense that I was talking about earlier that maybe y'all can help me out with. So at the end of episode 3, or the last episode, when the 3 racist white supremacists came into the house that was in Chicago, the ghosts or the spirits, the ancestors killed them. One was decapitated with the elevator. The other ones, I think, died by the heat. End of the episode, we saw them down on the first floor or the basement or the tunnel level of the elevator. And we saw that tunnel and we saw all of those bodies. And, it was like, okay, where do these tunnels go? Well, as we get our heroes here, and I'm jumping forward just a little bit. When the water is coming in, Letty sees that body and she says like, hey, I'm pretty sure this is one of the dead people that went missing, in my neighborhood. And then we see the elevator that's connected right there to their house. So, I know that we're dealing with magic and things of that nature, but, Chicago, well, they were in Chicago going to Boston that they said was 15 hours. But then when they was down there in those cabins, they said, how long will we walk in 20 minutes? How did they end up back in the house? Like, I mean, it may have to just be with magic and portals and things of that nature, but am I making sense here? But going back, was still fun. Like when I was talking about Montrose's character and how I see sprinkles of him being courageous and being a stand-up guy that could possibly lead, and then sprinkles of cowardice. Another moment, because right before that, when they was walking across the plank, lady was scared, and he made up that story about that super knot that was passed down. That was a nice moment of it for his character to show some strength. So I just wish that could be a bit more consistent, throughout the show, each episode with his character, instead of going back and forth. But, all characters can't be perfect, and we'll see how, he develops as the season progresses. We're just in episode 4 right now, but still, that was just another great scene, and just was making this adventure really come through for me. Is a lot of the camera shots and angles that had to be done by the director. It's Victoria Mahoney. I never heard of her before. She actually did an episode of Power as well, but there was a lot of long shots, a lot of long takes in this episode, and that really did help, in my opinion, to enhance the adventure like nature of this episode. But going back to where they were in the caverns when they made it across, and he and Montrose knew the code because he read the book of names that we found out he burnt. I guess that was Hiram's Epstein's arm in there, and Tick put his arm, but I guess he had the right blood, to open up the door passages, with the ladder, that went up to where we're going to meet that old ghost that was speaking the Arawak language. But, then again, when I was just saying how I'm really feeling how Tick and Letty are bouncing back and forth of just being a strong character is, Tick was just like, hey, another character moment I just love right here. Tick, hey, it's really getting dangerous. Y'all go up the elevator. It was like, Letty's like, what are you talking about? Just getting dangerous, dude. Like, it's been dangerous. I died and came back to life. Your father was kidnapped. Stop acting like this is only happening to you. I mean, she's right. But at the same time, I like Tick's character too, because, he's trying to protect her, because he didn't want to get them involved in the first place. But, they kind of coerced Montrose to come. But Letty, she was like, no, I'm coming or whatever. So I just really like that dynamic between them. And then it was just another great father-son moment right after that, to where, Montrose is like, hey, man, I think you need to apologize to your woman. He's like, I don't think it's going to be that easy. And I feel him there. I mean, he does need to apologize, because he cussed her out earlier when they first made it across the plank thing. She's like, hey, Tick, you're bleeding or whatever. He's like, Letty, I know, shit. I understood his frustration, but I'm like, oh, man, don't be mean to her, but he was just like, yeah, it's a bit more complicated than that. And then that's where Montrose was like, hey, your mama was complicated too. I had a love song. I just thought that was another great father or son moment, on top of the one that concluded the episode as well, when he said, in spite of me, you ended up being a great man. Like I said, further, it makes me feel that he's not his real father. But so they open up the trapdoor, go upstairs, and they have all these dead bodies. Just look like, old natives that's been here on this land for quite some time. Earlier in the episode, when Letty was saying that she read the brochure, he said that the renovations to the museum happened after Titus's last visit from the Caribbean. So I think that was I think they said that was in 1810, and then Montrose said, okay, 3 years later, that's where the Order of the Ancient Dawn was created. So I'm thinking that Titus had his run-in with this lady right here that looks like a hermaphrodite, Yahima Marokoti. It was a great scene right here. I'm thinking that Tick was the only able to understand what she was saying is because, he had the blood from Titus. Or whatever, and that's why he was saying, blood but not family, and it was just very interesting. She was just like, she had no reason not to trust him. She wanted to help him out. He came over to decide. He was trying to find somebody to decipher the code book, and she never met a people or a person that were just so hungry. And this is like hunger. They just want more and more and more. Just examples, this racist white supremacists, just, rape, pillage, destroy, rape, torture, burn, repeatedly. It's just never enough. And, that just really stood out to me. But when she was morphing into, like, I guess, human form from her skeletal form, it's just another thing that the director did a great job with the camera work, with that 360-degree spin that went around the characters, on top of the great acting. Because what are they looking at? You know, that's all CGI right there. So unless somebody's there in the green screen, they just have to fake that. It's just, you know, great acting. And she was like, she didn't want to help him or whatever. But, you know, they get the pages. They have to get out of there. We find when they come to, you know, Tick was like, yeah, he's right, that Titus put a spell on her to turn her into a siren. That's why she was, you know, if she escapes the vault. And, you know, I mean, we're at the end of the episode now, and that's where that we have that last father-son moment between Tick and Montrose that I was talking about. That just makes me go back and forth with this character. But, I mean, is he really trying to protect his son and his family, or is he being selfish because he murders the Yahima Marakoti lady, the man, woman, you know, there's two spirits. Like, he murders her because he really just doesn't want to get these pages, you know, decoded. And I really wonder why. I really wonder why or what's going on. Now, I wanted to save this part for the end because I didn't talk about Ruby that much. You know, she's just doing her thing. You know, we know that she wanted to work at the department store, and she was hurt. Her feelings were hurt a bit because, you know, she saw the other black woman there. And one of the things that I want everyone to take away from these shows is just, you know, just study the history. You know, look at how black people thought then and how we should be thinking now. You know, she was, and I'm not going to knock her for 65, 70 years ago. But, you know, she was really adamant about, you know, just being accepted in this white store. And man, probably just because it was money, you know, more money than she was getting paid wherever else. But I just don't want any black person thinking that way today. Like, oh, I got to get this. I got to get this, you know. But at the same time, I like her reaction, her receiving the news that this other black woman applied on a whim and got it. You know, she was hurt, but she just didn't seem like she had a bunch of hate in her spirit. Like, you know, I mean, you know, this BITCH right here. But, you know, she was, you know, drinking and singing at the bar. And that's when William came over, and then, you know, they ended up having sex. And, you know, she really opened up to him, just like, you know, for us, it's a rat race to the end and winner take it all. I wish I can do this, you know, if I was in your skin. And he comes over like, you know, I can change your life and all that. What do you think all that means? What do you think all that means? Because I will just say that it definitely carries over to the next episode, and I cannot wait for you guys to see it. We're going to have a lot of fun with that one. But guys, that is just my opinion for Lovecraft Country Season 1, Episode 4, titled A History of Violence. I really did love it. Like I said, that adventure aspect of it, you know, really sent me over the moon with this one right here. So again, please subscribe to the channel. Also give me the thumbs up if you like the video. And what do you think is going to happen next? I just want to know, what do you think? What are your predictions? Please drop them down in the comments, and you can spoil away. Also, guys, look me up on social media. But again, guys, I just want to thank you so much for tuning in. And before you go, don't forget to always chase your dreams, because I'm chasing mine. My name is Brandon Keith Avery, and that's just my opinion. Peace.